So, Scott, I would just need your advice about something.
Okay.
So, a guy named Steve came up to me on the street and said he wanted to loan me some money at 50% interest.
Is
Uh,
this a real story?
should I take that as my as a good loan?
No, that's ridiculous.
So yeah,
50%
that's going to be our topic this week, right? Is funding. So how
funding.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's always an interesting one, and we'll get into it in a second. But I've got some stories about that.
Yeah. People
But
trying to peddle you some
oh yeah,
aggressive loans.
it happens every day. We should talk about the whole private equity market later. So I've read up a little bit on some of that and what's happening in that space. But how's your week been?
Better than I deserve. I'm alive, above ground, and vertical, so can't complain too much.
Yeah, that's what a friend of mine used to say. He said every day's a good day when I'm on the right side of the ground.
Right. Yeah.
So my week has been hectic. We started out with a little project just to fix the shower because the shower pan was leaking,
Mm-hmm.
and so we had let it go. I had let it go for 2 years basically, because
Procrastinating.
it was procrastination, yes, but it was also like it didn't feel like it was that much because it was kind of leaking out of the wall.
Yeah, not a big
Um,
deal.
So but the Chinese people have a superstition, and it's actually kind of a practical superstition, but it's if you have any water leaks in your house, any little drips or anything like that, it's basically you're losing money in your life. Is the way that they look at that. So my wife has been nagging me about that for 2 years, and she's like, "This is bad feng shui."
That is some impressive resilience and procrastination that you can handle being nagged at for 2 years before you did something.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I think she's finally learning though that there's a point where she can just demand that it get done. So
If she just waits long enough, she can just drop the hammer.
yeah, but I think she's learning that she can just drop the hammer earlier
Yeah, fair enough.
and demand it. So basically, what happened is she's like, "Why don't you call that guy back that gave you a quote a year ago, and talk to him and see what his availability is." So me in my in my eternal wisdom of never planning anything.
Mm-hmm.
I call him up. I say, "Hey, can you come out, take a look?" So he says, "Sure." So he comes out, gives us a revised quote, and I was like, "Okay, when can you start?" And he's like, "Next week." Well, we didn't have any plan as to actually what we actually wanted to do, right? Other than just fix the shower. But then we started thinking about it, and we were like, "Okay, since you're going to tear it up anyway, right? Let's expand the shower. Let's put a new bathtub in, right? But now we have to figure out what bathtub, where's it coming from. Now we got to go buy tile because now if we're going to do the shower, now we got to redo the floor, right? So we might as well do that. Now we're going to do the floor in the closet to match the floor in the bathroom. Right?
Now I see why you procrastinated.
And if we're going to do that, maybe we should redo the closets in the shelving in the walk-in closet. So we went out and bought a new system for that.
That expanded quickly.
And now the next thing is when they're done with the bathroom, we're gonna do the floors in the bedrooms and get rid of all the carpet and everything and redo the stairs.
Then everything else won't match. Yeah, I gotcha.
So that's how that went. So
Yeah. So a tiny drip turns into a whole house remodel.
that's right. And you know what's funny about that is there's a poem. I think it was attributed to Ben Franklin,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes something like this. It goes for want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of a horse, the rider was lost. For want of a rider, the message was lost. For want of the message, the war was lost.
Yep.
And so I printed that out, right, and I put it in my booth, a lot of the times because I wanted to show people, so it was an example because our nails were so much better. Like everyone else use like little panel nails, which they're not made to take stress, right? They're just meant to hold stuff up very lightly.
Mm-hmm.
And so what would happen is these nails would work themselves out in other people's cases and then destroy the bottom. So we had barbed nails made, right? We had these special nails made that were decorative, but they had barbs on them. So when they went in, they grabbed the wood. So I used that as my example. I put up a picture of the panel nail and a picture of our nail, and then I had that poem, right?
Yeah.
and then I don't follow my own advice.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so there you go, Turtlesmith. That's don't follow my example of this half of the podcast, okay?
There you go. There you go. Do as you say, not as you do, type of thing.
Yeah, do as he says, not as I do.
There you go. I'm Scott Hess, tax and business consultant.
I'm John Barton, small business owner. Remember the tortoise and the hare? Slow and steady wins the race.
We started Turtlesmith to help people start small businesses, providing information and resources to small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Build a solid foundation and forge your dreams.
Well, this week we get to move on to phase 2, and phase 2 is all about preparation. So in the first phase, we built our whole business plan, and now we're going to prepare to get our business open. And so there's a lot of kind of learning steps throughout this process and kind of getting all your ducks in a row before we move into phase 3, which is execute. So the first step of phase 2 is funding. So you got to figure out where you're going to get your funding and plan for it. Now, you should have in your business plan your startup costs, and that's going to be what your initial funding is going to be. And again, on your business plan, don't forget that you're going to need money for yourself and all your fixed costs and all that stuff. So in this kind of step, we're just going to talk about some different examples of funding, like where you can look to get money, and a little bit about different investors and potential deal types that you can take. But there's 100 different ways to do this, to structure it. Just look at our website. We'll have more information and research to see if you're kind of getting a good deal when you go through this. The first way to fund a business is just self-funding. That's pretty self-explanatory. A lot of people start their own business with their own money. I started with mostly my own money. I took a little loan from my family. You were pretty all the way self-funded, weren't you, from start to finish?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
There were times when we got a line of credit from the bank, or there were times when one or the other partners would put in some money. But starting with me, when we say self-funded, is like I literally started out of what I made out of my paycheck.
Right. And did you kind of go down the rabbit hole of credit cards at the beginning?
Yes. So for the second company that I had, which is the one I have now, JB Cases, when we decided to move to the United States, we had no money. I had no job so I didn't have I didn't have a primary job, and we were making cases, and we actually did have some loans, okay, from my mother-in-law's friend, her school friend.
Mm-hmm.
That owned a factory, and he was doing some work for us, and then they agreed to loan us some money. But that money was really funding what was going on for the manufacturing side of it. And over here, the operations, I just came over here and I started applying for credit cards without any thought as to whether I would get them or not. And somehow or the other, I got approved for like $20,000 in credit cards. And so I just started putting all the expenses on cards.
So in general, that is a horrible idea. And we would like to recommend everybody not to put your entire business on a credit card that's at like 20% interest. Be careful. Sometimes you can get, though, 6 months or a year, no interest free, and that can help supplement your business. But you got to be wary, because the end result of going into debt on credit cards and not being able to make up the debt service is usually bankruptcy. I've seen it a bunch of times from clients that have come into the office. So be careful with credit cards. But self-funding is usually the easiest way to kind of get things going, but obviously that can be unfeasible depending on what kind of business you're trying to do. So the next thing we're going to talk about is some investors. So investors are very common for startups, taking on a kind of a silent partner or somebody who loans you the money at a reasonable interest rate. It's usually higher than the bank because the bank requires collateral, and investors or equity firms do not require equity. They're investing in the company. Sometimes they do, but if somebody's loaning you $100,000 just to go start your business, you can bet that the interest rate is probably going to be much higher than the bank. But a few types of investors to talk about. Usually friends and family are the first people to kind of hit up when you're starting on a new venture. If you have good relationships with your family and friends, they may want to support your dream. If you can have a good business plan to show them that it will work, they'll either loan the money or give them an equity share or something like that. There are such things as angel investors. People are always kind of using that term. Usually it's somebody within the industry that kind of knows what you're doing and that you've maybe met before, possibly a mentor or something like that, that's willing to basically bankroll you to start your own thing. And then there are venture capital firms or equity firms, things like that, that lend money out to small businesses. The different investment types that you can look at are equity shares or profit sharings or just straight up like loans. You can also do something called royalties. The difference of these is an equity share is when somebody just gets a portion of your business. So I'm starting, Turtle Co. and I need $100,000 to start. John's going to give me that $100,000 for 50% equity. And so we're 50-50 partners. I'm doing all the work, you're the money, and we split profits 50-50 at the end of the day. A profit sharing is very similar, except for you wouldn't have, the person loaning the money wouldn't have an actual equity share, meaning they wouldn't have much say in how the company goes. It would just be a share of the profits at the end of the day. Royalties are done on like a percentage of the sales or like a per item basis. So you could do 5% of your total revenue, or you could do like $1 per unit sold, something like that. And it's usually either up to a certain point of payback, maybe like double what they loaned you, or in perpetuity, which that kind of sucks, but sometimes you got to do it. Any thoughts on the investors or equity shares, profit shares?
Absolutely. Do I have thoughts? Because I've been through a lot of these. So, angel investing. I, as you know, loaned a cue maker some money.
Yeah, for the jump cues.
The jump cue thing. Mm-hmm. And that was, that I think could be qualified as an angel investment.
It absolutely is. You would be considered an angel investor there. You're in that industry, and so you loaned him some money to start his business.
And then royalties or commissions. I made a bad deal one time where I was literally paying someone 40% of sales that he made.
Yeah.
And so basically he was making more money than we were, significantly more.
Yeah.
And I have a friend of mine who retired from one of the telecoms, and he's worth many tens of millions, I think. I'm not going to disclose how much I think, but I talked to him about it, and he basically said, "How stupid are you?" to me.
Yeah.
So then I went back and I tried to renegotiate the contract with the guy, and I said, "Look, this is unsustainable." And I offered him 20%, which I think was still very generous of sales, right? And he declined to do that, which turned out to be really good for us because we started to finally see our bank account start to grow after that.
Yeah. 40% of sales is a pretty big chunk. Usually on royalty deals, there's kind of three items that you can take a percentage of. There's the total sales, which is the top line. That's usually less than 10% at most. Usually it's 3% or 5% because basically it doesn't matter what your expenses are. They're just taken right off the top. Then there's gross profit, which is your total revenue minus your cost of goods sold. And that's usually a better number to do things on. Usually that can range anywhere from 10 to maybe 15 or 20%. And that's before your ordinary business expenses, which then gets you down to net income. And when you start doing net income, that becomes like a profit share instead of a royalty. Now,
I'll say that, I approached banks at the beginning to try to get loans, and we were just flatly turned down. PayPal came out with a program that they called Working Capital, where they would loan you money based on your history with PayPal.
Yeah, but you already have to have some pretty good sales before you can get that, right?
That is correct. So that was our business was already going, and we were already taking PayPal.
But a good way to accelerate things.
So it was a good way for us to be able to get loans in the beginning. So it wasn't loans that we got to start the business. It was loans we got to promote the business. To do what we needed to do, pay for trade shows, pay for inventory, and so on, and payroll.
Yeah.
And that turned out to be really good, but that was also kind of expensive capital sometimes, depending on your. They have a whole range of variables that you can pick and choose, to get money. But basically, if you pick the slowest payback, they basically take a percentage of sales. So and it ranges from 10% to 30% as a payback, and then they give you a fixed fee for the money that they loan you. So if they loan you $10,000 and they say that you got to pay them back $11,000, that's obviously 10%. But there's an expectation of how long it's going to be paid back based on your history, based on your revenue.
Right.
And then they base how much they're going to charge you for the fee on that. So if you want a lower rate, you choose a more aggressive payback, like 30% of your sales, to get it paid back faster. And if you choose a slower rate, then it's going to be more.
Yeah.
And the more money that you borrow, the more they charge. So the highest that I've seen from them is like 17% on the money. The lowest I've seen, though, is for very small loans, is as much as 0.5%.
Yeah, if you do sales through PayPal, that's a good option for to use as like a line of credit, like if you need to buy like more inventory or something like that. But yeah, as a startup, unfortunately, you do have to have quite a bit of history before you can go there.
That's right.
So back onto the investors, I want to talk just a little bit about attracting investors and how you can find people to invest in your company. Obviously, the friends and family are going to be the easiest. You can just go talk to them because you've known them for a long time. But one of the things we want to talk about is your pitch deck. And we've developed the pitch deck in the last step of phase 1, along with our business plan. The pitch deck is basically your business plan, usually in a PowerPoint or some type of easily kind of presented format. It's got a lot of fluff, that word you hate, in there. But mostly it's to help kind of connect people with the company while giving them the information. You don't want to just come into an investor meeting spouting numbers left and right. Most people are going to get bored unless they're a real savvy investor who only care about the numbers. But most people want to feel connected to the business or a little bit excited to invest. So a pitch deck is a great way to get people interested in your company. Now, where to find them? Networking events is probably the best place to find people in your industry who would be willing to invest. And that's going to be the most common form of investment that you'll get is you'll find somebody in the industry because they know whether you know what you're talking about and they know whether your business plan will work. Social media to find those people. I'm not a big fan of LinkedIn, but I've heard people have had success there. Instagram, finding people. You can also go look at some of the accelerators or business hubs. There's a lot of places like that where small businesses kind of get together, and sometimes they have networking events or access to other people. And then, of course, the tried and true cold emails, cold calls. Cold calls are better, but just getting out there and finding people in the industry and knocking on their door and saying, look, I got this great business plan. I've got an idea. It's going to work. Let me borrow money. Another kind of form that you can get some money is crowdfunding. I don't know if you've ever tried that before. It works really well with like art projects and books and movies and stuff. I've seen those do pretty well on Kickstarters, particularly like games and toys that people are excited about.
Tech products work too.
Do they work well?
I've invested in quite a few tech products.
Yeah.
Most of them have come to fruition.
I've done a few like board games and stuff like that I'm a fan of. But crowdfunding can really work if you've got a business that is a kind of a retail type of deal where you're selling direct to the consumer. You make your videos, you get people excited. And if you have a really good business plan already, that really is going to help with, achieving your funding goals. The most important one I want to talk about, though, is bank loans and SBA loans specifically. SBA loans are are very good for people who want to start their own business. So you can get working capital and all the money that you need to buy all your equipment and stuff, usually at a pretty decent interest rate, and most of the time without large chunks of collateral, depending on how much you're borrowing and what you need it for. But if you submit your plan to the SBA and they approve your loan request, usually you can get funding, no problem. They back it, they guarantee that you're going to pay it back, and they make sure that banks feel safer to loan to you. So there's a loan request called the SBA 7A, and we're going to have all that information on our website. That is a key one to look at. And then, of course, there's just your typical bank loans if you have a good relationship with the bank and you just need money for the assets that you're purchasing. That can be done. So if you need like a building, you need equipment, usually a bank can finance that at 80%. I've seen equipment go up to 100% of financing, meaning they'll pay for the whole amount. You don't have to have a big down payment. But bank loans are about the best way to start businesses. You don't have to take an investor. You don't have to give out a large equity or profit share, but you have to have the capital for a down payment, and then you're going to be stuck with a big loan interest rate.
So you take somebody like me, though, that at one point I had capital. I could have paid $20,000 on a $100,000 loan.
Yeah.
But the bank didn't look at us like we were worth anything.
Well,
how do people deal with that?
Unfortunately, you got to have the equity. Like you need a house, that you have equity in, or already you have property.
So they want
that you have equity.
collateral.
Yeah, they want collateral. You got to have some type of collateral to back your loan. And like I said, if you're buying equipment, you can sometimes get a loan for most of the equipment, and then they'll just put the note on the equipment or land or stuff like that. But you still have to have that kind of 20% down payment to get a loan. You can't just go and say, I want to borrow $100,000 all for working capital from the bank.
So another thing that we have done in the past is we have taken loans from our customers. So that happened to me one time where I wanted to buy a piece of equipment. I didn't have the money. I had a customer that was about to put in a big order.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked him to basically pay up front the whole order so I could buy the equipment, and he agreed to that, but he also took a few points off the price.
Yeah.
So the end of that is that we worked for 6 months basically on this one order, and after everything was said and done, we figured up that we had about $5,000 in profit for ourselves after 6 months. So we more or less broke even with our expenses, but our personal income was only $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
And we also couldn't solicit any other customers or take any other more profitable orders in that amount of time.
Right.
So you got to be careful about that, but that is sometimes a source of funding.
It is. Yeah, it is. Especially if you're going to do a bunch of work for one client or two clients, you can get a loan from them to get things going. But like you said, you got to be real careful. So we'll have a bunch more information on different types of investments and ways to kind of structure things. But that's sort of the gist of things for this step. It's really important to make sure that you have your funding, at least an idea of how you're going to get it before you kind of move on with the rest of it. You don't have to have your funding now, though.
Is it worth it to hire somebody like you to go over everything and help people to figure out what they may or may not qualify for, or what they need to do to get themselves into shape to look good to a bank or to somebody else?
It is worth it to find a tax professional or accountant to kind of see where you're at, somebody, or even like a small business consultant like I do. It's not 100% necessary, but consultants or accountants and lawyers and stuff like that, they're all great to help you get these businesses started. But really what you're doing is you're just paying for a shortcut. You can kind of do all of this on your own. You don't have to have me or anybody else help you out, but it certainly does make things quicker.
So if someone, and this may be hard to say, but what should a person typically expect to spend on that sort of analysis and help?
It really depends on who you're going after, but a consultant can run you anywhere from a couple $100 an hour. Like if you just came in and asked me to take a look at some stuff, maybe a couple $100, I can give you a few pointers here and there. I don't even charge for consults usually, but hopefully my phone doesn't start ringing off the hook. We'll see. But a consultant can charge anywhere from a few $100 up to $1,000 a day. They can be very expensive. It really depends on what industry you're in and what you're trying to get accomplished. So it's hard to say an actual price, for those kind of things.
So I would say that there was a point, right, where I would look at that and I would say, God, $1,000, there's nobody that's worth that, to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just pure ignorance. And I would try to do it myself. When it came to getting an FHA loan for our house, I stayed up all night one time and just read through the entire FHA manual so that I could understand exactly, where we needed to be for the FHA. So when we put in the application, we had our money ready and all our books were where they were supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that was extremely helpful.
So that's a great example of if you had hired a professional, you could have paid them, let's say, even $1,000 and just saved yourself all that headache, and they would have known it better than you.
Correct.
And that's what it really is. Consultants, people like me, accountants, will charge you to look at things, and we'll make sure that it's right. We'll make sure that it's done a little bit better. But you don't have to have it. You can do like you did, stay up all night, and you got it anyway. So.
But the flip side of that is, I could have spent a fraction of that time selling cases, and I would have easily sold enough cases to pay for the consultant. And then I would have gained more customers in that space of time, and more product evangelists. So that's, in Germany they have a saying, is, don't save on the wrong end.
Yeah.
And that's an example of saving on the wrong end, where if you look at 2 blocks of time and you say, okay, in this block of time, can I bring in enough revenue or enough profit to pay for the people I need and also, create future sales down the road? Or is my time better spent, becoming an expert in that particular part of what I need to go for loans, right? And that's something you have to balance yourself. But, don't be like I was, where you just completely dismiss the cost of an expert, thinking you can go it alone without really kind of using that balancing test.
Yeah, we talked a lot about time and the feasibility step, and I think it's important to reiterate that as a small business owner, your most valuable asset is your time. You're going to be pulled in so many different ways, trying to do so many different things, that it's good to hire some people to take the burden off of things that you just don't want to pay attention to. And that's basically what my whole business is designed for, is just take burden off of the business owners for their payroll and taxes and accounting and all that stuff. To better answer your original question, though, I think it really depends on what industry you're getting into and how much you're spending. So if you're doing curb painting and your entire startup cost is a couple grand, something like that, it's probably not worth hiring a consultant. If you're doing a $1 million building and project and the consultant's going to cost you $5,000, which is 0.5% of your total spend, or whatever, I would say, yeah, you should probably hire somebody. I think that's the best way to explain it. It just really depends on what you're doing and whether you need a consultant or not. Every business can benefit from it, but oftentimes it might not be worth it.
Now, how would one know what a good consultant is? Because I would assume that there are some people that are more or less knowledgeable or more or less diligent.
Yeah. The best place that I think you can start is a local tax and accounting firm or a local CPA firm that's been in your area for a while, that have good ratings, have a few people working in the deal, a smaller shop that can handle you and actually pay attention to what's going on. That's probably the best place to start. Usually those guys will know a lot of other people and be able to direct you in the right, point you in the right direction to find somebody maybe in your industry or something that could help out further. that's where I would go.
Do you
first.
think that that like community forums, community business forums, is a good place to do that, or networking at like the Chamber of Commerce or the Lions Club or places like that,
Yeah, all those are great. I'm not familiar with the Lions Club.
or the Rotary Club? Is
the
that the
Rotary
business?
Club?
It's the Rotary. I'm sorry.
Don't
not
they
the
do a lot
Lions.
of charity and stuff, right? And then there's
They do, but they're generally if I remember right, I think the Rotary Club is basically a business organization that does a lot of charity and a lot of networking.
Yeah, those are great places. Networking events are great to find people, and you can ask around. And sometimes people will even lend a hand for cheap, just to help you out. Like we've talked about before, there's a lot of people out there who will help you with your business and not charge you just because they want to see you succeed.
Well, another resource in that vein is called SCORE. I'm not sure exactly what the acronym stands for. We could look it up, but it's basically retired executives.
Oh, right. Yeah, we talked about that before, I think.
Yeah, and you can find, I believe, on the SBA website, you can find a link to the SCORE, but you can also just look them up. It's just exactly as it says, SCORE. And these are basically literally retired businessmen, retired executives who are volunteering to give time to people who are in business, either already in business or people who want to start a business. And that's really worth taking advantage of. I did that for a little while, and I had really good advice that helped me. So,
right on. Well, again, I think we'll have a lot more information on turtlesmith.com, and we'll have a bunch more examples of the different types of investing and or getting investors and what you can expect from them and the different documents you might need.
And I think it's worth it to also mention that one of the things that we're going to be doing on Turtlesmith is having a list of vendors, that we have vetted.
Probably not soon, but hopefully
not
we can.
soon. I know, but that's one of our goals is basically to have resources that we feel confident in recommending. That may be something that happens, for free. It may be something where we get a little kickback, but we're going to be always transparent about it.
Oh, for sure.
And it will be our goal to do everything that we can to make sure that the people that we are recommending are people that we would use ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
This episode is sponsored by JB Cases. JB Cases is a pool cue case company specializing in custom cases. They have been in business since 2007, and their motto is true protection, true durability, true comfort, and true custom. Visit them at jbcases.com.
I think our next segment that we're talking about today is the point of sale charity donations, which I find annoying, to say the least. I don't mind giving $1 here or there, but it seems like everywhere I go, they're asking for extra money or to round up or
it's kind
something.
of a guilt trip, I think, sometimes.
Yeah. It's kind of like we talked about tipping a little bit before,
Yeah.
where it's they have all those numbers and it's a little bit of a guilt trip. But yeah, like you'll check out somewhere and they'll just be like, "Would you like to donate $1 to save children?" And then they just stare at you. Like, do you care about the children? I'm like, yeah, fine, okay.
And then if you don't do it, you feel bad about it. You're like, oh my God, I didn't save a child today.
Yeah. You leave the store and you're
Yeah.
kind of like, man, maybe I should have given. What's $1? It's not that big a deal if it saves a life. But I always wonder how those charities do. Like, do they actually get the money? Is the business getting a write-off? Are they using the money for what they say they're going to use it for? You did quite a bit of research on this with Chandler, didn't you?
We did. So the first thing that we learned was that there was kind of a meme going around. It was the concept was why give money to these companies, in their through their point of sale interfaces that allows them then to take a big bunch of money and give it away to charity and pretend like they're the ones that are being charitable.
Oh yeah.
And also part of this meme was that they get to write that off their taxes. So we found out that number one, they don't get to write it off their taxes. That's actually illegal.
Right.
And number two, I forgot what number one was. The number two was that it's actually a small percentage of charity overall. So when I say a small percentage, we're talking about like $800 million, in comparison to an $80 billion charity spend, that people give in America per year.
Right.
Which to me is an astronomical number too. But it's 1% basically. All those little donations that are given, the dollar at the thing, or the round your change up, all of that, the total amount of all that amounts to 1% of the total charity that's being given. So basically what I'm trying to say is that you don't have to feel guilty for not doing it, because even though you are certainly contributing to charity, you are also not doing very much.
Yeah.
And so the conclusion that we came to on that was, if you're going to give money at the point of sale, kind of make sure that you're okay with the charity that it's going to, so that that at least whatever you give, a large proportion of the money actually goes towards doing good and not paying a CEO salary or executive salaries, or tons and tons of research trips.
That was always my concern with giving to charity, is whether they were actually using my money for something, or if it was just to inflate like the CEO's pocketbook. My dad, his favorite charity to donate to was this place in Wichita called the Lord's Diner. It was a Catholic charity, and they fed people, just anybody. If you were homeless or low on funds or down on your luck, you could go get a meal at this place called Lord's Diner. And he liked it because it was on his way to and from work. So when he left the office, he would drive by and it would be full of people eating, and he knew that his money was going somewhere.
That's excellent. Yeah, my mom runs a nonprofit called Ice Angels. They feed the homeless every Wednesday.
Yeah.
But beyond feeding the homeless, they have created a coalition of people that do services. So there's one guy that brings a truck with pet food. There's another guy that's a barber. He comes out. There's a couple of them. They come out and they'll cut people's hair. There's somebody else that does dental stuff. People show up with bus passes. Clothing. My mom does the clothing, and then they'll show up with all kinds of donations. And then one of the other cool things that they do as part of their services is they will help people get back on track with things like getting them IDs, helping them fill out paperwork.
I heard that's impossible. If you lose your ID and like all your paperwork, it's really hard to get a new one.
Yeah, you can literally become, for all intents and purposes, you can become a non-person in America.
That's crazy.
And yeah, it's kind of nuts, So I like to donate to her. I like to help her out with stuff, and I bought him a food trailer and stuff like that. So hopefully you guys don't see me breaking my arm patting myself on the back. But it's kind of funny because we were talking about like what charities are good and what charities aren't. Well, they had gotten a grant, right, from the church to purchase a food trailer. And then the church changed some leadership, and they basically took the food trailer away that they had spent $12,000 on outfitting, and they sold it to one of the church members for like $6,000. So nothing funny about that. And so I was so upset about that I just went and started looking, and I found a food trailer that was very similar and was already outfitted for about $8,000. And I bought it, and I told my mom, I said, this belongs to me. I said, I am not giving it to the charity, your charity. I said, I own it. I will lend it to you forever, but the church has no ownership over it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm an atheist. I've said this a few times. She's Christian. But she embodies, what I would consider the teachings of Christ, love everyone, help the poor, help the needy, and so on, right? So I don't mind giving to people like that for their calling, if you will, or their ministry, if you will, or the way that they want to do charity. So I don't think of it so much as me being generous and being charitable as me helping her be charitable and generous.
Right. Right. Are there any other charities you work with, or just with hers mostly?
So one that I really like, which I don't even know if this would qualify as a charity per se, but it's called Kiva,
Mm-hmm.
and Kiva does micro lending.
Oh, that's nice. I like
And
that.
and so they literally have like a whole list of people in different areas, rural areas, and low income countries, and they will literally say things like, um, um, Bill needs $1,000 to start his auto repair business, or Jane needs $500 to buy 3 goats,
Yeah.
so she can start her milk delivery business or something.
Yeah. Another source of funding we didn't talk about. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
and so I enjoy that because they pay back, and every loan that I've ever given out there has been paid back, and then I just reinvest it. So what's cool about that is that it's not money that kind of you feel like just goes into a black hole somewhere, and then you have to give more, right? It's money that you can see is working, and then the people pay it back, so you know that there's a virtuous circle happening.
I work with a charity called FLM, which we'll have to link their stuff. I'm actually on the board right now. I'm not sure if I'll stay on it for a long time. We'll see. But it's called the Foundations for Liberating Minds. They're all about educational reform. It's a pretty nice one. I've never sat on a board of a charity. It's kind of fun to
Oh, that's excellent.
to
I'd like to
learn.
learn more about that.
When they vote and stuff like that, you got to say the ayes and nays, and it's pretty exciting. But let's talk about some of the charities that are on those point of sale systems. Did you find any ones that were great and some that were terrible? I think you talked about a website that rates charities.
So Charity Navigator is one of the websites, and then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there's another one called Charity Pilot, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the two biggest ones. If I remember right, there's like two of them that are the largest ones that rate these charities, and they dive deep into the public filings,
Yeah.
and they basically put up a score, and they say, if a charity has like a lot of expenses compared to the amount of money that goes actually towards projects, right? Then that gets a bad rating, because obviously you don't want a charity where the CEO, the charity brings in $100 million and the CEO is making 20 million of that.
Yeah. Well, let's look.
Um,
Can you look by charity on there? Look up. Yeah, you can. Right at the top, there's a search bar. Look at Salvation Army. I always give them probably $100 over the course of the Christmas. ON. Yeah, there it is. How are they doing?
It
Four
says
star
they're
charity.
a 4-star charity. They've got 100%. And I believe that they're one of the ones where the CEO doesn't make very much money.
Mm-hmm.
And they, you can look at their impact. So their rating report has impact and measurement, accountability and finance, culture and community, and leadership and adaptability. Now, I want to say something about that. There's another charity that in my second marriage, my wife worked for a charity for a while, and I'm trying to remember what they were called, but they basically bought farm animals for people in underprivileged countries.
Oh, I worked with one. I think it's called the Heifer Project.
That might be it.
They would buy they'd buy like a cow for somebody, and then they'd buy like some goats and
Right.
chickens, and they'd give underprivileged people like these animals to raise, so that then they could
Right.
sell their
That was it. Yeah,
milk or eggs or
yeah.
whatever.
I believe that was it. If it's the one that's based in Arkansas.
That's it.
And my wife
Yeah.
worked there. She was I forget exactly what she did for them. She was like the director of communications or something like that, because she was a writer by training.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually have like a big working farm, or ranch, or
I
farm
went
ranch.
there.
You did, so you were there. Yeah.
When we went in, I think like 8th grade, we were doing something with the Heifer Project, and they took all of us to the camp, and they have little cities, like kind of examples set up. So like they have like a stone house in Guatemala, and that's like the richest. And then they have like a Asian place like on stilts in like a little swampy area with like it was awful, like mosquitoes and stuff. And then they had like another little place where that was like a circle hut for Africa. And then I stayed in the barrio, which was basically like a tin shed tin roof, tin walls, and we had to spend the night out there one night.
Isn't that amazing though? How it
Mhm.
gives you really a sense of what's going on in the rest of the world. I mean, we in America are so isolated sometimes from the way we have 400 million people here, 350 million people. We're like 4% of the world's population.
Yep.
And we don't realize that there are billions and billions of people who live in conditions that we couldn't hack for even a couple days.
Yeah, most people couldn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a little bit of an eye opener. It was real funny because they actually give you enough food for everybody, but they divvy it out to the different locations, so you have to like share in order to make it work. And most people didn't share. So
Wow, really?
yeah, yeah,
But I think it's pretty neat because they use that to help people really gain an experience, but they also do research.
hmm
They do research there to try to improve the yield for the health of the animals. They try to do research for the agriculture.
yeah.
They work with a lot of agriculture organizations to bring best practices to these places.
Yeah. Now I've heard some horror stories about some charities though that they only give like 10% of their money that you give them actually goes to the
That's
cause.
that's what Charity Navigator can do.
I don't know any off the
Um,
top of my head, but
is there on this Charity Navigator here? Is there a place where we might find the worst charities? Let's see. There's a best charities.
yeah, maybe just Google worst charities. Let's see what pops up.
But yeah, that so the basic gist of everything is this, right? Is like, you can be a person who gives these micro donations at checkouts and stuff like that. Um, but maybe be a little bit diligent about knowing who you're giving to make sure that most of that actually does some good.
Yeah. Now, if you owned a retail store, do you think that that's a good thing to have?
So if I personally had a charity that I cared about, I would do that, okay? But what I would do is I would do more than just asking people at the point of sale.
Mm-hmm.
I would actually have somewhere in my business, I would have some kind of communication with people so that they could understand that this is what we care about and why. And I would try my best to make sure that this isn't performative on our part, so it's not seen as using it for commercial purposes to draw people into our business. I can't stand that, I really can't. I have very rarely, very very rarely have I ever done the 5% of sales goes to this
And see, I'm going to
or
disagree
that.
with you because I think that's great. I think most businesses should do something like that. I try to give away a little bit of my money each year. I don't say it's for anything, but I just try to give away, a little bit of money each year. David, my brother, he gives $1 per bottle sold of his turtle wine to the Turtle Rescue Foundation.
Okay.
And I think Turtlesmith will jump on that bandwagon at some point if we ever actually make any money off this thing rather than just inflating our egos by talking shit. But
Well, I donate a lot of product to
Mhm.
people's, like, and this is another topic that we can get into someday, but the healthcare system in this country, the way that this country has a, very inadequate social safety net. So what happens in my community, in the billiard community, is I get hit up often with people who have medical issues. They have for charity pool tournaments, and they will ask me for a case to donate.
Mhm.
And so very very often I will donate a case. It probably happens 50 to 100 times a year, and and um, and then they will take the case and they will use it for a raffle or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's my way of donating, but it happens on a case by case basis, no pun intended. Um, instead of me putting something out there and saying, okay, 5% of the each sale is going to go towards a sick pool player fund or something.
See, I think it's a fine thing to do, and I think it's a fine thing to advertise. And if it brings you more business and you end up donating the money, I still think it's fine. But
Yeah.
I don't know about the roundup. I'm still on the fence about that. I hate that. If you just have like you said, signs in your business that say, we donate X amount for this and this is kind of what we do, I think that's kind of nice. But I understand your viewpoint on it.
You know what I can't stand? I can't stand the nonprofits that hit you up for money, and they basically use scare tactics and fear, and they're basically selling fear. Like something like the NRA, for example.
Oh yeah.
I signed up for the NRA just to see what would happen.
I'm sorry. I think your liberal card just got revoked.
Well, it may have, right? But I did it as an experiment, right? And I was inundated, right? So first of all, I signed up for the NRA. It's like, I don't know how much it was, like $30 a year or something like that. I mean, maybe a little bit more. But for $30 a year, they send me a tote bag, or basically a tool bag. They send me a whole bunch of knickknacks and stuff. Now, I know, kind of what advertising specialties cost and stuff. Mm-hmm. This was about maybe $10, $12 worth of stuff, right? And so basically, of the $30 that I gave them to be a member, they spent 12 of those dollars on crap and postage to send me stuff back. Yeah. So there's number one, right? And number two, I just got incessantly for the whole year that I was a member, I was bombed many times a week with these scare tactic emails, mm-hmm. these infomercial, scammy, scummy emails that were basically telling me that if I didn't donate more, or I didn't do this, or I didn't vote this way, that society was going to collapse.
That's how they get you.
And I think that is completely awful, especially when you look into it and you find out that the leaders in that organization are taking lavish trips. They've got, they're making $20-30 million a year or whatever.
Well, this is one of the ones he brought up, worst charities, and this is one of the ones I wanted to mention. I've seen that United States Deputy Sheriff's Association. I think that's on the worst one from Wichita, Kansas. That's my hometown. I'm pretty positive I've seen that before. I don't know if they're still around, but on this list that you just pulled up, it's got the lowest rated and highest rated per cause. I don't know what some of these,
because you can make up any that you want, right? So you get all these incessant phone calls, donate to the left-handed policeman society,
yeah,
and shit like that, and they've got their pitch down, and a lot of times they just catch people in a good mood, and they're like, sure, here's $50 or here's $100. That's what they do. They're bottom feeders.
My old boss, he used to always give to the Oklahoma Highway Patrol because they send you a little sticker.
Yeah.
And if you put it on your bumper, it's kind of a get out of ticket.
I think that's what everybody thinks, and that's what they play on when they do that.
I don't know if it actually works or not.
Yeah, I'll just say this. There have been a few times, I used to do that as well, and I used to have a sticker, because I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff sometimes. And there have been a few times when I have gotten off with a warning, but no police officer ever has told me that they let me off because they saw a sticker.
Fair enough.
So I believe that was probably just coincidental.
Well, at the end of the day, I think charity is really just about making yourself feel good and making your business feel good and putting you in a better spotlight, maybe. I don't know.
So I don't think that we are in complete disagreement. I just feel like that sometimes, so I think that if I understand your position on that, anything is better than nothing. So if a company is doing it performatively so that they can just, get good vibes from the community or be thought of as good, but they don't really care.
Well, hold on. Before you go on that deal, I have heard of nonsense where companies like Pepsi or the big companies will donate like $50 million, but then they spend $300 million in advertising to tell you that they spent the $50 million in.
Yeah, so that's what I would consider to be performative.
That to me is just bullshit.
If you're going to do that, take $350 million and just give it to the charities.
Right, that's what I said.
But so that kind of stuff, I don't feel like is good.
I agree with you on that.
So I'm saying that yes, I believe that businesses should be also part of the community. They should be good citizens, and they should be transparent as to what they're doing and why they're doing it, and another thing that I never see now, again, I never really dig for it either, but I don't necessarily see that things were done. Now, I'm not going to mention any names, but there is one presidential candidate in recent years who has a habit of saying that he's going to donate to charities. He pledges publicly, and then he doesn't follow through. And then at some point when he was questioned about it, he said the pledge was the donation, the promise to do it, the public promise, because that inspired other people to actually donate. So
that seems accurate.
I am gonna say that I do not agree with anybody doing that sort of thing. I think if you make a public pledge, you should follow through with it.
Well, I think as a small business owner, if you can, don't go broke doing it, but if you can and you're doing well, you should try to invest at least in your community. That's where I think most people should find charities. I don't like the point of sale roundup. I do like when a company, pledges to give part of their funds, as long as they're not grotesque about it. But a small business donating to local charities within their community, sponsoring the kids, baseball team, sponsoring your local alumni association, giving a little money to your alma mater or whatever. I think those are great, and I think small businesses should strive to do that if they can. But I hate the roundup at Whole Foods.
I don't like the guilt trip.
I just that it's awful.
Especially when everybody at the table sees it, and then you're like, like how am I going to look to these folks if I don't give these people, the 30 cents or the extra $1? Well, especially the ones where it's like they give you like 4 choices of what you want to give. Do you want to give $1? Do you want to give $3? Do you want to give $5 or $20?
Well, I'm kind of blessed now that it doesn't really make that big a difference for me. But there was a time when, rounding up, that would hurt my budget. I don't want to give you an extra $1. I need that $1.
Here's something that so I used an app for a while called Acorns.
I started using that after we talked about it last time. I had thought about doing it a while ago, but I've got it going. I have like $100 invested now.
So here's the thing with that, right? Is that if you want to invest in something, right, and you don't want to think about it, but you don't mind doing the roundup thing, mm-hmm. then just get an Acorns account, let it round up for a year, and then donate that money to the charity of your choice.
There you go.
Make it an annual thing.
Keep the interest.
Yeah. I used to actually give Heifer organization. Mm-hmm. I used to give donations on their in the name of people for Christmas gifts.
Oh, you were that guy?
I was that guy. So I got to feel really good about all the charity that I was giving away.
Yeah. I bet your kids like that. Terrible.
They were like, just buy us a cow.
Right? Yeah, there you go.
But no, I want to say with that, that yes, maybe there was a little bit of that, me feeling like I was giving more by doing that. But it was also for me, I mean, I gave people normal gifts too, right? But there was a lot of that was just, I thought of as a way to introduce that charity to other people.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we'll link some of those charities we liked. We didn't really find any that we didn't like, but that Salvation Army having 4 stars was kind of surprising. I've heard some horror stories on Reddit about them, but maybe they're wrong. Who knows?
Goodwill's a funny one too, because Goodwill, their prices are kind of up there now for the stuff that's donated to them.
Yeah.
And their CEO, I think, does pretty well. But on the other hand, right, they actually do have a pretty robust jobs program. They have robust training programs. People can learn new skills.
I worked at a Goodwill for 50 hours of forced community service. Yeah, for some legal trouble I got in as a young man. It wasn't too bad though. I just sorted crap and we threw computers away. They don't take your computers; they just throw them away. I'm pretty sure because we just had to throw those in a box. But yeah, it kind of nasty sometimes what people donate. But they're not too bad. I don't think Goodwill. But the last time I went, their stuff was pretty pricey.
Yeah, they've gone up quite a lot. We actually shop at Goodwill a lot. I think these shorts are probably Goodwill.
Yeah. See, we don't do Goodwill anymore, but we do like local thrift stores that take donations and.
Yeah, but some of those can be scammy too. You
know,
you just have to kind of figure out what's what.
Well, we go just because it's fun, not because
Sure. Yeah.
you might find something real valuable for $3.
Well,
I've yet to do it, but
that's the thrill of thrifting.
all right.
You know.
Well, any other thoughts on point of sale donations or businesses donating money?
No, really. I think we've covered pretty much everything that I was thinking about. But yeah. This episode is sponsored by JB Cases. JB Cases is a pool cue case company specializing in custom cases. They have been in business since 2007, and their motto is true protection, true durability, true comfort, and true custom. Visit them at jbcases.com.
Well, I think we're going to end this episode with a new segment. We kind of do something different at the end most times. This one is going to be what we're grateful for. So what are you, as a business owner or just person in general, grateful for?
Well, I guess the number one thing that I'm grateful for is the freedom to be able to move in different directions, to take advantage of opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this as someone who's reached a point where I've started to make a little bit of money. And thanks to you, I've started to learn how to use that money. So, now is the point where I can start to look for opportunities. And through you, I know what I can afford to do, and what we need to do to be attractive to lenders and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it opens a lot of doors. But the freedom to be able to get to that point, and pursue your passion, I really like that. I am grateful that I live here in America. I've lived in places. I've lived in Germany. I've lived in China, where there's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of heavy-handedness. And I find that here, there's really a lot less pressure bureaucratically. Now that's the business I'm in, is not regulated barely. So I imagine there are businesses where it's very heavy-handed.
Yeah, I think your tone would be a lot different if you were trying to manufacture your cases here, because then you'd have to deal with, OSHA and all those regulations, and having a manufacturing facility in the States is very difficult. But I still think you're right. I think it's easier and there's more opportunities here than there are in other places in the world.
Right. So anyway, that's what I'm grateful for, that's kind of a big, broad thing, but, right now, yes.
Well, there's just so much I'm grateful for. I was racking my brain when we decided to do this segment. Grateful I met you. Grateful I have good clients. But I think the real thing I'm most grateful for is the three kind of main employees I have. They're all really hard workers. Brandy, she just crushes it and has freed up so much of my time to spend on things like this and other projects. Tiffany's been working for me for a long time, and she's really the brains of the outfit around here. She just tells me what to do kind of most of the time. And Calvin, our newest hire, he's crushing it with these videos. So that's what I'm most thankful for, that I've gotten really lucky to find good employees, which is one of the toughest things to do.
Well,
we can't leave out Chandler either, your personal
absolutely
assistant. He's always helping you out.
Thing with that is, if we go back to things I'm grateful for as well, I've said this often on the podcast, but I am really grateful that we met you, and that, together we've learned how to walk a different path, with business and resources and what we can do with them. Because I'll be honest with you, I being ignorant of where you're at financially, being ignorant of how to hire, and the value of spending the time it takes to really find somebody good, and understanding that what you're paying them, is worth it. That is a real drag. It really makes you lose a lot of opportunity. But getting to a point where you understand, okay, I really can't afford this. Now let me use the money wisely and invest it in someone that knows what they're doing, pays dividends.
Yeah.
There's just no way that you and I could have done this on our own. But
Oh no.
when I first started thinking about it, when we first started thinking about it, I honestly believed, it was going to be just as easy as putting up a camera, recording it, and throwing
Yeah.
it up on YouTube.
Yeah.
But having met Calvin, having hired him, and learned all the things that he's learned, that he's taught us about the business so far, the ins and outs, the details, things like that, the things that we didn't think about, that I didn't think about. These are the kind of things that he's doing as a producer that just were way out of my wheelhouse. And even if I knew them, I wouldn't have time to do them.
No. Yeah, it's a full-time job what he's doing, just dealing with
so
our couple little
yeah,
shows.
I'm very grateful for that, because like I said, if I said I like the freedom, but part of that freedom is being able to listen to people like you, listen to people like Calvin, right? Have access to people like Tiffany, for example, and Brandy. I know she's on top of our stuff, so it's basically the ability to have a team of people that are supporting you in whatever you want to do.
Yep, that's what I'm most grateful for anyway.
And I fully agree with you with that. So thank you.
All right, well, I think that's it for this week. It's good seeing you again, man.
You too, man.
Yeah.
So everybody have a good business week, and make your charity donations count.
Yeah, we'll try to link those in the description here, and of course, turtlesmith.com, a lot more information. So,
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye, everybody.